So something had been walking around inside the fire pit.
Yes. Flies.
The stink.
Two
little Boston Terriers.
I said, why? She's like, they're peeing on themselves.
They were scared to death.
And they were scared. They don't even want to come out. And it was laying on the ground. Whatever it was laying on the ground. And it was covered with leaves. And as I got closer, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was just looking for the footprints, but I happened to look up and it just moved and leaves flew everywhere. And all I saw on the reflection of the car where it turned around, and whatever turned around had a high forehead and like a little cone head.
Oscar and Sylvia and Oscar.
I guess at the beginning, the flies,
The stink.
the stink, it smelled rotten, and it was fly. I mean, it was all over the air.
Okay, so and at night,
Yes.
something would be hitting the camper.
Yes.
How consistently would that happen? I mean, what would you do?
It wasn't as often, but we did have several that we went through, or we were in the containers and something just whacked the container from the side, and I'd run out there. And by the time I come out there, I couldn't see anything.
Your initial weirdness was you had things smacking or hitting somehow or another, whether
In
it's
the
being
camper,
thrown or
in the
being smacked.
containers.
Yes.
Never at one or the other, you know. It was not directed at us.
It was at our camper
It was
where
just
we
random.
were inside. He went to work. I came out. I went back. I had to go into town. There was another camper parked right where ours is right
Yes.
now. And the lady came knocking. I came home around 3. And in the morning I just left early and I came back around 3 and she came knocking on my door and she said, I need you to come out here and see something. And I said, what? And she said, here, come here. And she had 2 little dogs and she was holding them and she says, these dogs don't even want to go down. I can't put them down. And I'm thinking,
2 little Boston Terriers.
I said, why? She's like, they're peeing on themselves.
They were scared to death.
And they were scared. They don't even want to come out. And these dogs, you let them out and they run all
fly
over
out
the
here.
place.
They didn't want to come out for nothing.
She was holding them and she says, they're peeing themselves and I need you to come here. And she was standing right there and I walked out and
And this is in the daytime,
yeah, this was around 3 o'clock.
about 3 in the afternoon.
Yes, and I came out and I looked. Those were our stairs and I looked and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's footprints everywhere. And my husband had just put new road base down, so it was freshly put down. And you could see the footprints where it had been up there, not close to the camper, but maybe a good 2-3 feet away from the camper. But it had walked all around through here, stomping
In and
everywhere.
out of here.
All this.
In and out of this
It would leave a lot more prints going out.
Because it was stepping on all the ashes, so
And
it
walking
would
out.
and walking out, and it would walk around, and then at one point it had walked over to her house, and she said, I need you to come see this too. She's like, out of the sewer hose, something had bit into it, and she said, my dogs at 3 o'clock in the morning were like going crazy, and it was just her and her husband, and she said, we didn't know what was going on, but that's when whatever was out there doing whatever, and the dogs were like going crazy. And she said in the morning when my husband left and he left, because they both worked at the same place, she said, I let the dogs go out and they usually ran like crazy and they peed right there, and then they ran inside, and she's like, I didn't know what was going on. She's like, and then as it started getting lighter, she's like, I came out, I'm like, what is going on with them? And she's like, that's when I saw that our hose had been bit into it.
Now, was this one of those is it one of those corrugated hoses?
Yes.
Yes. And she said, I looked.
It's pretty strong, and it crushed it. I mean,
Yeah.
you could tell it crushed it.
Oh, okay.
And she said, and I walked over and there was footprints headed this way. And that's when she said, I realized it was here. She said, did you hear anything? And I'm like, no, I don't remember.
So something had been walking around inside the fire pit.
Yes.
Inside the ashes, and then walking around leaving ash trails.
Yes.
Yes.
All the way back there to her camper, and then back here, all around here, and then it must have headed that way. Because the last footprint we saw was in that one rock, the one that's flat.
Uh-huh.
It stepped from about right there, and the next,
Jumped out.
it put a foot there, and the next foot was there. So I'm going to have to say, what, it's about 4 feet, 5 feet? From there to where it stepped. These rocks have not been moved. It stepped here, it put a foot here, and the next foot was here, and then it headed that way.
I mean, if it went from,
Yeah, about right there.
so that's about 5 foot stride.
That happened, and then months went by, and we were gone. We go where my husband goes to work, and one day we came home, and he likes to do his little fire, and we had a lot of wood, and he had his truck parked there, and we were dropping off he was unloading all the wood, and I was just sort of walking, and he said, these are heavy, so I just walked around just looking, because he cleared out all the edge of the fence to see if anything crossed over, we could have footprints, and he'd say, you can go check the footprints, I'm right here. He never wanted me to go away from where he was, just in case I saw something.
Naturally, yeah.
And he was unloading the stuff, and as he started unloading the stuff, I started walking around this edge just to see the clearing, if anything had come over, stepped into it. And as I ended up closer to this one tree, there's that other little tree that looks like it's been eaten by a beaver. And when we first got here, my husband had tons of leaves, and he would throw them over into the other side of the fence, and it looks like it's a tomb, like it's just piled up. It's just piled up of old leaves. So I started walking, and I know where he dropped all the leaves, and as I'm getting closer to the leaves, something was underneath the leaves, and it jumped up as I was getting closer, probably as far as like where you are from me, and I don't know how.
Yeah.
And it jumped up, and it was laying on the ground. Whatever it was laying on the ground, and it was covered with leaves. And as I got closer, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was just looking for the footprints, but I happened to look up, and it just moved, and leaves flew everywhere, and he headed that way. And I could hear it in the water, and I started screaming at Oscar, and I'm like, get over here. I said, something was just jumped out of the leaves.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? He couldn't hear me, and I'm like, get over here. I said, so he shut the truck off, shut it off, and he walked that way, but you could still hear it going through the water. But whatever it was staring at us.
Yeah.
And it was probably in the afternoon, like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And it's usually the leaves as cover.
Yes, and it was covered. But as soon as I started getting closer, it either panicked or realized I was going to see that it was there, and it just jumped. A couple weeks later, we decided to buy containers, and we had all our stuff because we had moved here. We had put stuff in storage, and he said, let's start bringing everything back to our container, which we had here. And he had his pickup, and he had his trailer, and we went to get our stuff, and we parked right here, just right here. And he went inside, and I had left food in the truck, and we weren't ready to unload. So he went in, and I turned around, I came back to get my food from the car, because there's wild animals, and I'm thinking something's gonna get my food if it smells it. So I came around, and as I opened my door, I heard like a purring noise, and it was pretty loud, because I thought, I don't know what the heck it is. And I had just walked, so I didn't see anything.
And this is daytime.
It was daytime. It was probably about 4 or 5 o'clock, and of course it doesn't get dark that quick. And I opened the door, and I started grabbing my food, and I heard that, but it sounded like it was like right here, but it wasn't. That's how loud it was, but it was like a purring, like a kind of sound. And I opened the door, and I looked back, and I'm like, what is that? And I could see all the trees, the color of the trees, and I kind of stared into something that had a different color than the trees, and it was kind of a rust color, and because it was like a little breezy, I could see the fur, like stuff moving, and I stared at it, and I'm like, what is that? And I must have had like 4 steps, and as I got closer, it was hunched over, whatever it was hunched over. And as I got closer, I realized, oh shoot, that's something. That is not just anything. It had a body. It had a body. And when I got closer, it pulled itself up, and then I'm like, ah! I just either did a scream or something, and that thing just like, as soon as it heard me scream, it went, and it took off. And it took off on 2 feet. It was thick, and it looked kind of short, but it was only because it was hunched.
It was hunched over?
It was hunched over. When it straightened up, it was a lot taller than me. In the next couple months, I mean, of course, I'm scared. My husband's telling me everything's okay. You just don't go out in the dark. And we were parked. We moved our camper from here, and we parked our camper over here. And our camper was facing this way. All our connections were to this side. And we'd sit at night.
To the creek side.
To the creek side. And our couch, our recliners were facing, our back was to this side of towards the creek. And every night we'd sit down and watch TV, and we could hear like stuff outside our camper. Like stuff was moving around, like something's tripping over stuff. And of course it's very dark. But I had put up Christmas lights. My kids came over and we decorated this tree with ornaments, and our camper was small, so we couldn't have a big tree. So my grandkids said, we're gonna put lights and everything. Once we put lights, it seemed like there was more activity, like stuff coming around with the lights twinkling. It was coming around, and it would go around whatever it was would go around the camper, and it would stumble between the hoses and everything that's connecting all our utilities. And one day we had enough, and we kind of look at each other like, it's nothing, it's the deer, it's something. So one day I said, we were sitting there and we were watching TV, and this, whatever went, it looked like it sounded like it fell. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, you go this way, I go this way on our bed. I'm gonna look this way, and he's gonna look this way through our windows to see, we're gonna catch whatever it is.
So your bed is on that upper deck thing?
On the fifth level.
On the fifth level?
On the fifth wheel, there's a level where their bed is. There's 2 windows on the side, one facing this way and one facing this way. So, like I told you, we had our lights on, and we had a car that was parked where this silver car is, and our lights were so bright that you could see the reflection of the lights. If I were to sit and look outside my window, I could see the reflection of these lights on my car.
Okay.
And when we heard that, we ran like as fast as we could. He jumped on the bed and he looked this way. I jumped on the bed and I looked this way, and all I could see was my car. And as I looked, there was something probably as high as this, as tall as me, and all I saw on the reflection of the car where it turned around, and whatever turned around had a high forehead and like a little cone head. And it dashed around and it came right in front of the camper into where the lights were, and it moved and it just disappeared. And I'm like, you didn't see him? You were looking this way. And he said, I didn't see nothing. I said, okay. But every night before we would go to bed, we would rake all our road base to see if there was any footprints.
So when you say road base, you're just talking small gravel.
Gravel with dirt.
Recycled asphalt.
Yes.
So you guys started getting really proactive to try to find it out.
we started raking around the camper.
That's clever. That's really smart.
We're gonna find out who's been around here, and we'd rake. And that night I said, we're not gonna go outside, and you're not going outside, because he'd come out in the morning to check around. I'm like, you're not going out there without me. I said, we're both gonna go out at the same time. I said, whatever ran in front of the camper. I said, and I know how tall this thing was. It was probably about as tall as me.
It's a smaller one.
A smaller one.
Yeah.
And all I saw in the reflection of the car with all the Christmas lights on it, it had a cone head and it had a really high forehead. And I'm like, I just saw something. And I said, didn't you see it run that way? Because it went across into that big stump and it probably headed this way. He said there was nothing. I didn't see nothing. He opened the door and I'm like, you're not going out there without me. I came around, he looked around the car, and I said, this is where I saw it jump. I saw it come through here. I didn't see any footprints in the front. The only footprints that I saw were where I said it crossed over, and it was like 2 or 3, and it took a footstep like here, and the next one was probably,
Which was those there. Oh.
yeah, which is that one. By that time, it had probably come around this way on where I got to see it, but it had the reflection of the car and the lights, and that's what I saw. And if you see all those pores, it's because baking soda was the only thing I had to show it.
Yeah.
And then I went and got plaster, and I was able to get the plaster.
So that's about 8.5 inches long.
That's crazy how wide it is.
It
for
is
being
very
8.5
wide.
Inches, yeah.
Said I talked to my brother-in-law who was mocking me and saying, nah, you didn't find anything. And then when he looked at it, he's like, I've done forensic this and forensic whatever, and he's like, this is an actual, I can't remember what he called it, and he said, this is a foot. He's like, and by the way it looks and how deep it is, he's like, I can tell you, this is probably someone who weighed about 300 to 350 pounds.
That's insane.
He's like a very big, heavy, and he said just by the way the foot landed, he says, I can tell you this is not a normal foot.
Yeah, there's no like clear like human arch
Yes.
structure in there.
So I was able to take a picture of all that. So I have pictures. I have pictures of the footprints from here.
You said you put a camera up and you lashed it to one of the poles or one of the
Yes,
trees.
my husband put it up because it's always windy, and I wanted to see if anything was coming around in the camper. So he tightened it up so tight. I couldn't even it was so high up, I couldn't reach it, and I couldn't even move. I couldn't even budge it. So one day we came back, and the first thing I'd say is I'm gonna go get my SD card and see what I can see. And that one time it was it seemed like it slapped it and it turned around and it was facing that way. All the time it was facing that way.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I couldn't even move it back. I said, you need to undo it because I can't even move it.
Oh,
And
wow.
he kept saying, well, maybe it was the wind. I'm like, the wind does not move it. I mean, we left it facing this way, and then it was slammed this way, and now it was, all we could see was this up here. We couldn't see anything here. And at that point, I'm like, I'm just not even gonna put it up anymore. And I didn't.
And you never caught anything on it.
Well, I
Other
caught
than
animals,
all the animals that come right through the
bears,
spigot.
turkeys, deer, everything else.
Everything else.
But nothing weird.
No.
No.
It was a lot taller than where he is,
Because you could see his-
Shoulder-wise, it was like twice as wide as that,
Did you see a head?
to about his elbows in width.
Did you see a head?
No, it was taller than that.
Because
Okay, so
that tree has fallen. I mean, it's
Oh,
broke-
so the
it's-
tree used to be
it's broken.
taller.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna say twice as broad as that stump there. He was trying to stay under that stump, but I could see where he was a lot bigger in size, a lot taller than what he looks like.
Yeah. How did that make you feel when you were able to see how massive
How
that
massive
was?
it was. Well, yeah, it's
Was that intimidating? Were you
Yeah, heck
was
yeah.
heart stop. Oh no, what do I do?
I mean, that bear I saw over here, he's 300 pounds, and he intimidated me, but I just spooked him away, and as
Yeah,
he ran away
yeah.
from me.
But this one you were whistling and it
And-
just wasn't doing.
Yeah, this one wasn't moving. It knew I was watching it, so it would just stay down like this, and I could see it do this.
And then how did it disappear?
Well, I turned back because I was grilling. I turned back to the grills to go check up on him, and as soon as I turned around, it's gone.
That's gone.
He knew I was
There was
watching.
your trailer.
Oh, the trailer was back here, and I had a couple of friends come over with me. And then it's when the rocks started flying and
Coming from the
from the thicket, yeah, back there. Oh, it's hitting on the trailer or
Oh, I
around
see.
us.
Okay, so
And so they just got scared and said, no, we don't want. We're just gonna get out of here.
We
So-
don't want anything.
how long did that last?
Until they left, probably.
I mean,
Until, yeah,
10,
I would
15
say
minutes?
10, 15 minutes, yeah, at the most.
Okay.
Because we moved them here right away back to the fire pit, and then they went on over there to Felix's.
So overall, do you feel like these interactions are aggressive, or it's just
No.
they're just trying to get your attention because they're
Getting our
bored?
attention.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's been my experience for me, but other people have had
They
other
have never
interpretations.
caused any damage
No.
or come after us physically or to hurt us in any way.
Yeah, but it's still scary, right? Because it's
Well,
like
yeah.
a giants,
It's very
giants,
scary.
hairy giants. They're just
Yeah.
hanging
It's
around.
very scary, and we don't have really close neighbors other than Felix up there and people up there. But in the middle of the night, it's we're not even paying attention to what's out here. We're paying attention to what's in there, and then you hear that, and we kind of look at each other, and he runs out, and you don't know what you're going to encounter, but it doesn't damage anything. It doesn't knock things
No,
over.
Never damaged.
Have you ever had your camper pushed at all?
It may be at one time
Yes.
or another.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
felt it,
You've felt
We
it
have felt
Yeah.
get moved?
and it
I
must have
usually
been.
got it pretty well stable. I got
Yes.
Yeah.
well, it was a bigger camper,
Uh-huh.
but it's still same thing though.
But I mean, to at
You,
this
you,
point
you can
to
feel
move
you
this,
doing that, yes.
When it's windy, you can feel it move. But when we felt that, it was not windy at all.
Okay.
Because
Wow.
even as you did there, it took a little bit
Yeah,
to
it did.
get it to
It
move
did.
something bigger, stronger is gonna shake it pretty good.
Yeah.
But it just wants to let us know that it's around here.
She's been the one that's seen the most and heard the most, and some of the stories were hard for me to believe, but after seeing the big footprints in that ash clearly,
Yeah,
you can't.
yeah, it's hard to dismiss now.
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then your sighting of A pair of shoulders.
Yeah, big old
and you
shoulders.
said they weren't reddish.
Yeah, and as soon as I turned away to come towards the grills, I looked back and there's nothing there.
Well, that's interesting that
Is
it's also the reddish because you saw something red over here.
Uh-huh.
You saw something red here. Big footprints here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it seems like it's the same.
Something-
And then there's a small one.
yes.
Yeah, they're small.
Yeah.
So there's, at least two, but they seem to be consistently
Yeah.
the same two. So,
It
What that
just-
means, but
And these people have been here going on 7, 8 years maybe now, and they had never seen anything.
Yeah.
We came down here. Of course, they're way up there, and we were right next to it here.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's-
and there was nobody else here at the time when it started, so they had a lot more.
Yeah, they were like, we
was
never,
just us.
you
A lot more
maybe-
skepticism.
Maybe not,
Yes.
not,
Yeah.
They didn't believe, but I mean, how can you see all the footprints and think that it wasn't there?
It's easy to be in denial.
Yeah.
So you might start noticing things now.
And I'll
that
be
you're-
here more now.
Yes.
You're- well,
Like
let
I
us
said,
know. Let us
doing
know if
the
anything
raking,
happens.
and we'll see if
Yeah.
something's trying to creep up into the window, and
See,
if
this
not,
this you can rake every night, and you
Yeah.
can see footprints on it.
'Cause this is definitely ongoing, you
Yeah.
know, and they seem like that. Like I said, like I call them creepers or giant like toddlers,
Yeah.
because the way they behave.
yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
that's
we'd never,
Never been harmed.
No.
Never in any way destroyed anything.
yeah.
I think the only one that came in and knocked down my trash barrel was the bear.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
ate all the rinds out of there of the fruit and ran off, and you could see all his paw marks on the barrel. 'Cause they're white barrels, and he had all them berries and stuff on his
Yeah.
paws, so it's
You
it's
just
still
went and
on the
grabbed
barrel.
it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.